to thank you for everything that you have done at the CBI. When I first became business secretary, the CBI was not in the good place that it is now. It was a distressed asset, and I think between Rain and Rupert, they have done a fantastic job turning things around. I remember at the time people saying... I remember at the time people saying that the CBI would cease to exist, other organisations were going to take over. I'm very pleased to see you go from strength to strength, but I am very sad, Rupert, that this is your last CBI conference, so thank you so much for all that you have done. And thank you, all of you. I know that you're all very busy people. You have staff to pay, customers to serve, boards to convince, banks to placate, and you're spending your time this morning with me. I'm very, very grateful. Because the people in this room, you, are the people who keep Britain going. You are the people who drive our economy, and I know how hard things have been. Over the past year, I have visited more than 150 businesses, big listed companies, family firms, tech startups here and in the US, manufacturers in the Midlands, hospitality in coastal towns, oil and gas firms in Aberdeen. I have sat in your boardrooms, walked on your shop floors and back offices, and I have listened. And what you tell me is very simple. You want to grow, you want to invest, you want to hire, but you feel squeezed, second-guessed, constantly interfered with by a government that doesn't really understand how business works. We are all waiting in trepidation for the budget in just 2 days' time. We spent the last 3 months hearing nothing except which horrible taxes are coming. But when I visit businesses and I ask them what causes the most anxiety, yes, they do talk about the tax burden, but the single measure that is complained about more than any other is this government's programme is not a tax rise. It is the Employment Rights Bill. Businesses don't oppose rights for workers. You know that good staff are your most valuable asset, but you can see, better than anyone in Westminster, that this bill is not about fairness. It is about power. It is about putting unions in charge of your workplace and sending you the bill. So I want to explain why Conservatives oppose it, why we will repeal the terrible measures in it, and how that fits into a bigger Conservative plan to get Britain working again. First, let's be clear what we are dealing with. This bill is not a little tweak to modernise the law. It is a 330-page assault on flexible working written in the TUC's headquarters, designed to drag Britain back to a world where unions call the shots and employers carry the blame. For 30 years, flexible labour markets have been one of Britain's real strengths. They allowed us to create millions of jobs after the financial crisis. They helped us keep unemployment much lower than competitor countries. They are one of the reasons we became the largest exporter of financial services in the world right up till 2024. This bill rips that up. Take day one tribunal rights. Under this bill, a new hire can turn up at 9 in the morning and lodge a claim with an employment tribunal before they've even worked out where the toilets are. There are already 491,000 claims in the tribunal backlog. Yes, you heard that right. 491,000 claims right now. It takes about 2 years for a case to be heard. Most employers are told by their lawyers to settle, even when they have done nothing wrong, because it is not worth the hassle or the expense to fight the case. That does not protect workers. It just makes hiring riskier, slower, and a lot more expensive. It is a gift to the litigious and a disincentive for anyone who wants to give someone a job. Then there is the de facto ban on seasonal and flexible work. If a university undergraduate, a student, anyone chooses to get a Christmas job and works 40 hours a week in the 3 months to December, they then have the right to those same hours in January, February, and March. Except there's no demand then. There's no need for extra staff or the money to pay them. So a measure designed to ensure employment does the opposite and everyone loses. You know what happens then. Rational employers stop taking on seasonal staff at all. The farm does not hire the extra fruit pickers, the hotel does not take on staff for the summer, and of course, the high street shop does not offer Christmas jobs. These are the very opportunities that got many of us started. My first job was on the high street. I started at McDonald's, and then I got a job in New Look, part-time. Those were the places that gave me a chance to learn. Many of you in this room probably had your first job during a summer holiday or on a Christmas shift. These opportunities are at a real risk of disappearing because of this legislation. And there is more. Let's look at the so-called right to roam. Under this bill, any union with designs on your workforce gets the legal right to march into your private business to recruit members. If you employ 21 or more people, that union can insist that you gather your staff, give it physical access to your workplace, and even provide a platform on your internal digital networks for the union. And they can do this every single week. It's in the legislation. This is not industrial relations, this is industrial intimidation. And then we have lower strike thresholds. Today, unions need a 50% turnout to call a lawful strike. Under Labour's bill, that safeguard is attacked. There just needs to be a majority of those who turn out in favour of strike action. So to use an extreme example, in a workforce of 1,000, if only 3 people choose to vote and 2 of them vote to strike, the entire organisation can be held to ransom. Yes, this is an extreme example, but it is to highlight the absurdity of these provisions. This is what happens when you design law in a back room at the TUC instead of in the real world. None of this is about giving ordinary workers a fair deal. It is all about giving union barons, bureaucrats, and employment lawyers more power. So when I say that this is not a pro-worker bill, I mean it. It is a pro-union, anti-business, anti-growth blueprint. It punishes the people who create jobs, and it will hurt the very people that it claims to help. That is why Conservatives will repeal every job-destroying anti-business measure in it. Britain cannot prosper with a state that smothers ambition and a labour market that is designed solely for union bosses rather than for the millions of people who want to work, hire, build, and grow. Now, some people will say that this is all exaggerated. They will say it is about fairness and that somehow Britain can absorb all of this without cost. You know that that is not true. It will cost businesses £5 billion. Peter Kyle said this morning that the government's #1 priority is growth. This destroys growth. That £5 billion that will have to be met with higher prices or fewer jobs. I do not believe that a government that has growth as a #1 priority will be pushing this. They have their heads in the sand. I heard Peter Kyle today say that there are going to be 26 consultations, so it's going to be all right. It is not going to be all right. And if 26 consultations are what you need to fix things, then you have a really, really big problem. We do not have a growth problem in the UK because British people need more rights. We have a growth problem because the state is too big. Fewer and fewer people are working to support more and more people out of work and living on welfare. The rider is getting heavier than the horse. And then look at the productivity costs. Every hour spent dealing with a tribunal claim is an hour you are not spending on a new product. Every law that makes you think twice about hiring is a law that stops someone getting their first job. Every regulation that moves risk from the state to the employer nudges investment out of Britain and into countries that still understand reward. Right now, Britain needs more people in work, more investment, more experts, more risk-taking, not more rules. We need to get Britain working again. That is how we pay for our NHS. That is how we fund defence. That is how we look after the vulnerable. Keir Starmer talks the talk of national renewal and growth, but he walks the walk of stagnation and decline. And that is why this bill is such a problem. It attacks the very flexibility that made us resilient in the past. It tells investors that our politics is moving in the wrong direction. It makes it harder to hire, harder to fire, harder to adapt. It is the opposite of what a serious pro-growth strategy would look like, and the price tag is eye-watering. The government's own impact assessments put that cost to employers at £5 billion a year. This wasn't us that made up that number. That has come from the government, and they're still doing it. So who are we fighting for when we oppose this bill? It's very clear. We are on the side of the small business that cannot afford an in-house legal team, but still wants to take a chance on a young apprentice. We are on the side of the saver and the pensioner whose livelihoods depend on this country actually growing. We are on the side of the worker who wants work to pay, not to be trapped in a welfare system that rewards idleness and punishes effort. We are on the side of the young person looking for their first break, who may find that opportunity never exists because this bill stops companies making an offer. We are not on the side of those who treat business as a piggy bank and the law as a political weapon. What Britain needs now is real fairness. Real fairness means living within our means out of respect for taxpayers. It means helping people back to work because idleness wastes lives. It means planning for tomorrow's children, not just today's headlines. That is why our economic argument is simple. We need to get Britain working to deliver a stronger economy. To do that, government must get its own house in order. Our golden economic rule is clear. For every pound we save, at least half goes to paying down the deficit, and the rest goes to investing in our priorities for growth. But living within our means is only half the story. We also need a state that stops suffocating enterprise. That means a relentless focus on deregulation and simplification. So how do you know that I'm serious? It's because I've done it before. When I was business secretary, I started a smarter regulation program. We reformed working time reporting requirements, saving businesses up to £1 billion a year. We raised company size thresholds to take smaller firms out of the most onerous reporting rules. I said a hard no to things like mandatory ethnicity pay reporting that would have created spreadsheets for all sorts of activists instead of jobs for workers. That is the direction we must go in again. A Conservative government, led by me, would scrap pointless reporting burdens and let managers manage. We would focus the state on what it should do: secure our borders, enforce the law, protect property rights, provide essential services, reliable infrastructure, and then get out of your way. For those of you who don't know, this week is Family Business Week. So it's a great opportunity to remind everyone that it is Conservative policy to scrap Labour's family business tax. And there is so much more. But we are doing this not because we are anti-worker, but because we know where growth really comes from. It does not come from the Treasury. It comes from you. From the risk you take when you sign that lease, from the mortgage you put up against your own home, from the hours you put in after everyone else has gone home, and we believe you should be rewarded for that. So on Wednesday, we will finally see the budget, although it feels as if we've seen about 3 different versions of it before Rachel Reeves has even stood at the dispatch box. And I expect that we will hear warm words about fairness and national renewal. We will be told that there is a hole in the public finances and that everyone must do their bit, and we will see tax rises dressed up as necessity. They're not. We need to cut spending. But if Rachel Reeves is serious about growth, if this government really cares about the future of British business, there is one easy, cost-free decision that they can take. And that is to scrap the Employment Rights Bill. This bill does not raise a single pound in revenue. It does not help a single unemployed person into work. It does not add a single unit of productivity. It is a pure political project. Killing it would be a sign to the world that Britain still understands what makes an economy grow. And if the Chancellor had any sense and any regard for business, she would use the budget to say, we got this one wrong, and then she would drop it. It would be the cheapest pro-growth measure in the Red Book. And if she does not, then I repeat my promise. At the first opportunity under my leadership, a Conservative government will repeal every job-destroying anti-growth measure in this bill, and we will restore common sense. We will send a very clear message that Britain is open for business again. But I will end with this, a message to all of you. You cannot sit this out. Too often in recent years, business has retreated from the argument for fear of criticism. That cannot continue. If you believe in enterprise, believe in opportunity, and believe in the idea that wealth has to be created before it can be shared, then we need you. Speak up. Tell your staff what this bill means for jobs. Tell your customers what constant tax rises and red tape are doing to prices. Challenge those who treat you as a problem to be managed, not a partner in our national success. The choice for Britain is stark. It's a future of higher taxes, thicker rule books, and slower growth, or a country where government lives within its means, business is free to grow, and work pays once again. I know which side I'm on. And if you stand with us, let's get Britain working again. Then together, we can deliver a stronger economy and a better future for our country.
Wow. That's really good. And you may know that on the Employment Rights Bill, that the CBI has been chirping almost as loudly as Andrew Griffiths has on the iniquities of it. But do you sense now, you are, 15 months into your job, do you sense that...
12 months.
What?
12 months.
Is it only 12? It's
only 12.
Time flies when you're having fun. We're going to come to questions in a moment. But do you feel that you're getting better at it?
Well, like any job that you're doing for the first time, yes, of course you do.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who was at their best on their first day. And in fact, you should be worried at anybody who's at their best on their first day. Yeah. I mean, just even understanding what we were dealing with, what the landscape was going to be. But it's getting clearer and clearer, the direction the country is going. It's very hard to be in opposition if you can't see what it is you are opposing. And you look at the last budget, there was a lot of talk about growth. We haven't seen any growth. There were all sorts of measures around planning. Those things aren't happening. Nothing's happening. We are in stasis. People are leaving the country. I mean, the FT had 1 in 8 business leaders, was at the Telegraph the other day, 1 in 8 business leaders leaving. That's appalling. So it's becoming clear what we need to do. We need to be the party of growth, the party of business, and we need people to hear our message. We also need to acknowledge that we made mistakes in government. You will remember a lot of the things I was banging my head against the wall about. I'm now in charge, and I've started junking all of the silly things which happened, and I've got lots more good stuff that will be coming in due course.
Fantastic. Let's go to questions from the floor. There should be paddles going around giving scores out of 10. So can I have a question, please? Question. On the right number, paddle number. Oh, in the front. And please say who you are.
Stephen Hay, the Association of Manufacturers of Domestic Appliances. Kemi, you talked about deregulation, and essentially, you did a lot of work in this area when you were in government. And the Secretary of State also spoke about the fact that he was looking to cut the red tape. But in effect, we're seeing quite a strange situation with regulation at the moment. We're seeing, obviously, great divergence between the UK and the EU. We're seeing regulatory burden, we're seeing regulatory drag, and this cutting the red tape seems like a pipe dream at the moment. So how do you feel about that? Because we certainly are feeling the burden of regulation and duplication of effort, left, right, and centre. And this is costing business, and especially manufacturers, a vast amount of money.
You're absolutely right. And one of the things that was supposed to happen after leaving the EU was the divergence should have been in our favor. That did mean us becoming a lot more competitive. And instead, because of lobbying from various pressure groups around the environment, tax and so on, we've ended up trying to compete on regulation by showing that we can do even more. It should be the complete opposite. UKCA, for example, as a certification, as a way of certification, was supposed to free you to do those things. I think a lot more effort needs to be put in there. But to be honest, quite a lot of what is burdening businesses, apart from red tape, things like the Employment Rights Bill coming along, it's the basics. It's energy costs. Far too high, unbelievable. 4 times the industrial energy prices of the US. Our oil and gas industry is completely disappearing. We need to get very serious about energy. We need to look at the fundamentals. What's happening on energy? Yes, tax overall. Working, flexibility in rules, removing the red tape, making sure that we are staying competitive and that we're attracting the right businesses here. I do worry about manufacturing in particular. I think we're forgetting how to make things. I think a lot of people are thinking it's too difficult here. China is eating everybody's lunch, not just our own. What do we do about that? But what I want you to know is that when it comes to deregulation, we are serious because people like Andrew Griffiths, my shadow business secretary, and I have come from the private sector. I left banking because I stopped being a systems analyst and ended up being a de facto compliance officer. It's not what I wanted to do. There is way too much regulation. It is not growing our economies, and we need to start thinking like businesses. We've come from business backgrounds. We know what's going wrong, and we just need to move very, very quickly because things are getting worse at a pace that is deeply concerning. Thank you.
Another question, please. Number 3 is charging to the back.
Good morning, James Birchall, Telon Capital and Chair of the CBI Business Rates Committee. We've been behind the slab to slice driver and change. One area that we've heard very little from you has been about business rates, which is obviously a huge impact on businesses. I was wondering whether you have any strategy or thoughts or thinking in respect of changes to business rates.
Right. Well, I'm very disappointed that you haven't heard much from us on business rates because I did announce a lot on business rates in my conference speech, as did Mel Stride. So thank you for asking that because it gives me a great opportunity to repeat what it is we're going to do. We have said that we need to save the high streets. And the businesses that are suffering in particular are those on the high street. Retail, hospitality, and leisure has been hit with everything from the jobs tax, minimum wage changes, and they are dying. And high streets are a visible signal of decline in many, many communities. We've got to save them. So our policy is to abolish business rates pretty much for the high street. Anyone whose rates are £110,000 or less, we would abolish that entirely. And that will, for retail, hospitality, and leisure. Those are the people who are struggling the most. And that's one of the things that we know will actually revitalize the high street and ease the burden of business rates. What happened in the last budget with the changes, reducing the discounts and so on, caused a lot of stress for businesses across the country. In my constituency, many people just decided to give up. We cannot be in a position where we are causing businesses to give up because it makes sense not to work. We need to get Britain working again. Business rates is another area, like deregulation, where we can do better for a lot of businesses.
Thank you. Another question? Yeah.
Hello, Tanya Bowers, Association of Professional Staffing Companies. And certainly we support you in your comments around the Employment Rights Bill and how it could destroy jobs before it makes jobs. My question is around industrial strategy. The last government had a bit of a suspicion of an overarching national strategy, which we've now seen with the current government, and the previous talk was around some of the innovations arising from that. As a previous business minister, what's your position on a national industrial strategy?
Thank you, Tanya. It's a really good question. I mean, what we saw was industrial strategy changing every 2 to 3 months to the point, 2 to 3 years, to the point where we couldn't call it a strategy. Businesses need certainty. And between Brexit and COVID and a war in Ukraine, it was just going from pillar to post. I think that the best industrial strategy is keeping things simple. That's why we've got a cheap power plan. Driving energy costs down is the one single thing that will make life easier for everybody. I don't believe that government should be picking winners, but I do believe that government needs to create an environment for businesses to win. Right now, we're setting everyone to lose, and I think that we're setting everyone up to lose. That needs to change. So right now, the biggest thing that we think can be done that is an industrial strategy is our cheap power plan, and the Shadow Energy Secretary, Claire Coutinho, has done a fantastic job showing how it will save a lot of money for household bills, but also bring industrial prices back down to more sensible levels. That will then spur growth, stimulate manufacturing, and do a lot more than governments taking bits of pots of money here and putting them in places where it's not actually enough to make a big deal. I don't think lots of businesses scrabbling around for small pots of money is an industrial strategy. Let's focus on something simple that everybody understands, and that's what our cheap power plan is.
Another question? May have to be the last, depending on the length of the answer.
Okay, hint taken.
Hi, I'm Diana Vernieto, Edify Collective Education. But actually, I wanted to ask a follow-up questions regarding the high street. We have seen after Brexit, the duty-free VAT removed, and this would actually seen how France has been thriving, especially on the luxury. What we will do about this in order to, this is a low-hanging fruit to really give the high street a little breather and the luxury industry in the UK. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. This is one of the things which I see as the Treasury never properly modelling dynamic effects. So I was a junior minister when that was brought in, and there were lots of officials running around saying, oh, when we leave the EU, lots of people are going to be doing tax-free shopping, it's going to be terrible for us. And I was saying, no, this is a good thing. More people will come in, more people will shop, we will make more money. I lost that argument, and what we saw was tax-free shopping removed to the point where we are now losing business to France, to Italy. I know lots of people who have said that their businesses on the high street closed. This is London high streets mostly, Oxford Street and so on. It closed, they're just basically shop windows. People are looking and maybe shopping online or going elsewhere. This has to be fixed. So Andrew and I are looking at it. I was very much against the tourist tax. I don't think it's really raised any money. We have lost a lot of competition. It has been bad for the high street. Many people will know when I was business secretary, I did a lot of work with the British Retail Consortium and other luxury goods associations to try and fix this. I think it's something that we can fix. But there is a more fundamental problem, that the Treasury does not model behavior changes when it looks at taxes. It puts up taxes and thinks that everything will continue as it was. You look at VAT on private schools. They're not getting the money that they thought they would get. Schools are closing. They're now having to look after more children going to state schools. The same thing will happen with the family farms tax, the family business taxes. People are leaving. We need to start modeling behavior. Otherwise, we're going to have all sorts of terrible tax policy coming in by people who are overly simplistic about how they analyze it.
Brilliant. Leader of the Opposition, Kemi, thank you very, very much indeed. That's been great. And thank you also for being so straightforward about the Employment Rights Bill. I've been responsible for employing people for nearly 40 years, and I have thought my way into what it's going to be like to employing people, taking those risks if it goes where it is. It's going to be really, really damaging. So all strength to you for calling it out. It needs a lot of rethinking. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.